They double-kicked her to the floor. Then she broke both their legs in front of 282 Navy SEALs. The wind cut sharp across the training yard, carrying the metallic scent of sweat and steel. Two men approached her with smirks and arrogance, thinking this would be a game. They didn't know she had no intention of losing, and today, the rules were about to change. Petty Officer First Class Elena Concaid adjusted her gloves, kneeling briefly to center herself. The morning sun reflected off the damp concrete of the training compound, casting elongated shadows. Around her, 282 Navy SEALs waited, eyes scanning, bodies coiled with power. Some whispered jokes about the medic's size, some scoffed, others watched quietly, uncertain. She had walked this line before. Tiny in stature but immense in focus, the kind that drew attention without effort. Deployments in Afghanistan, shadow operations no one would ever know of, field medics under fire. All of it had sharpened her reflexes, taught her restraint. Elena's face remained neutral, almost serene, but beneath the calm was the awareness that tension can ignite in a heartbeat. Her eyes caught the two men near the front, Marcus Hale and Brandon Riker, towering, confident, filled with disdain. Today, they would learn that the measure of strength wasn't in size or bravado, but in precision, control, and the quiet patience to strike only when justified. "Look at this," Brandon whispered, loud enough for half the compound to hear. "They really think we need to learn from her?" Marcus laughed low, the sound carrying across the cordoned-off training yard. Elena didn't flinch. Her movements were deliberate, methodical, showing no reaction to their taunt. She was focused on the volunteers, guiding them through the first defensive drills. One by one, men lunged at her in controlled attacks, and she redirected each effortlessly. No wasted motion, no overexertion. The murmurs of doubt faded as the SEALs began to notice the finesse in her technique. Marcus and Brandon, though, still lingered in their smug bubble, unaware that this bubble could burst with a single misstep. Elena felt the shift before it happened. Her body tensed just slightly, not with fear, but anticipation. She was trained to read aggression, to feel the moment when arrogance crosses the line into danger. And today, that moment would come. It happened fast. Marcus, trying to assert dominance, stepped forward, his knee clipping her thigh in a calculated jab meant to intimidate. Elena didn't scream, didn't flinch. Instead, she pivoted, letting his momentum carry him past her center line. With the precision of someone who had survived real combat ambushes, she swept his standing leg from under him, and he hit the concrete with a harsh thud. Shock rippled through the spectators. Silence fell. Brandon laughed nervously, thinking his turn would be different. He lunged, trying a mocking double kick. Elena caught both attacks in a single motion, redirecting each force with minimal effort. 7 seconds. 2 clean takedowns. No wasted movement, no theatrics. The compound had gone still. Even the seasoned SEALs, men who had faced real battle, found themselves holding their breath, processing what had just happened. And there, standing calm, she wasn't celebrating, wasn't gloating, she was simply watching. Marcus groaned, clutching his knee, his eyes wide in disbelief. Brandon, shaking, had his ankle twisted at a painful angle. Neither expected retaliation, let alone with such controlled force. The lesson was sinking in. Strength without discipline is meaningless. Around them, whispers filled the air, some in admiration, others in disbelief. Elena stepped back, breathing steady, her posture relaxed but commanding. The SEALs, trained to assess threats instantly, now recalibrated their entire evaluation. This wasn't a stunt. This wasn't a demonstration for applause. This was survival made visible. Even those who had doubted her abilities felt the shift, the subtle, undeniable proof that she was more than her stature, more than her quiet demeanor. Marcus and Brandon, humiliated but unharmed beyond the intended controlled damage, realized their arrogance had blinded them. Today, Elena wasn't just defending herself. She was showing a universal truth. Fear underestimation can cost more than pride, it can cost control. The room was silent except for the rhythmic sounds of labored breaths and distant seagulls over the Atlantic. Chief Instructor Harmon's eyes softened slightly, a mix of approval and awe. Around Elena, volunteers reset, some nodding in quiet respect. Marcus and Brandon, humbled, rose slowly, limping but alert. The crowd of SEALs, 282 men and women, now saw her differently. Elena didn't need to announce victory. Her restraint, her skill, and her ability to teach through action spoke louder than any words. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet tension remained. This was more than a drill. It was a mirror reflecting the dangers of arrogance and the power of disciplined focus. For Elena, it was another day, another demonstration of control, and another reminder that courage often wears the guise of calm. The sun rose higher, casting the shadows shorter, as she prepared for the next wave of challenges the day would bring. Elena adjusted her gloves again, kneeling to tie a loose strap on her utility belt. Her mind drifted briefly to deployments long past, dust-choked streets in Helmand Province, the blur of gunfire, the wounded faces she had carried on her back, the quiet prayers whispered over those she couldn't save. The SEALs didn't know this history. They only saw a petite medic demonstrating technique. But Elena knew her own limits and strengths intimately. Discipline had saved her more times than luck. Focus had outmatched brute force repeatedly. As she scanned the circle, she caught the glances of newer SEAL recruits, eyes wide, hearts racing, some pretending not to tremble inside. They didn't yet understand the lesson that arrogance often masks fear. And Marcus and Brandon, standing stiff and trying to regain their composure, were the perfect contrast. Raw strength, unchecked ego, untempered by awareness. Elena let the contrast linger a moment longer, letting tension simmer. Today, the lesson was more than combat. It was humility, resilience, and the invisible power of experience. Think you're ready for the next one? Elena's voice was calm, but her eyes didn't leave the two men who had tried to dominate her earlier. Brandon smirked, stepping closer, mimicking her stance in mockery. Marcus let out a low laugh, cracking his knuckles, exuding confidence born of size. The spectators felt it too, an electric tension slicing through the compound air. Elena didn't flinch. She had anticipated this behavior. It was the moment every operator fears, when the controlled lesson becomes a test of ego. Slowly, deliberately, she circled them. The world seemed to narrow. The 282 SEALs watching, the distant coastline, even the seagulls overhead faded from awareness. The arrogance radiating from Marcus and Brandon demanded a response, and Elena's body remembered every battle, every ambush, every instinct honed by survival. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't call out the provocation. She simply positioned herself, silent and calm, letting the moment stretch, until the first misstep occurred. Marcus lunged again, brute force in motion, a predictable repetition. Elena's muscles coiled, her weight shifting effortlessly. She met his motion, redirecting it in a fluid sweep that sent him sprawling onto the concrete, knee twisted but controlled. The crowd gasped, silent shock rippling through the observers. Brandon moved faster, eyes wild, but Elena anticipated every angle. With precise timing, she locked his ankle, redirected his momentum, and brought him down beside his companion. 2 clean takedowns. 7 seconds. The SEALs stared, disbelief frozen across their faces. Elena stood quietly, calm, breathing even, the weight of every past lesson guiding her. The arrogance she had seen evaporated into startled respect. But the moment carried a deeper resonance. This wasn't about punishment, revenge, or proving superiority. It was a demonstration of controlled power, the mastery of one's body and mind under pressure, the quiet authority that comes from experience and restraint. The SEALs understood. Strength is meaningless without control, and courage often hides in calm silence. Chief Instructor Harmon stepped forward, his expression unreadable but his eyes holding the faintest glimmer of admiration. Elena turned to him, nodding subtly, acknowledging the silent recognition. Around the circle, murmurs rose, some in awe, some in disbelief. The younger recruits had learned something today that no manual or lecture could teach. Marcus and Brandon, humbled, adjusted their gear, shifting uneasily. They had entered the exercise with the belief that raw force equaled dominance, but now they faced the undeniable reality that discipline and experience held a power beyond brute strength. Volunteers returned to their positions, readying themselves for the next round of drills, but the atmosphere had changed. Respect had replaced derision, tension replaced casual arrogance. Elena remained the quiet eye of the storm, calm, collected, untouchable not because she was unassailable, but because she had mastered herself. This subtle shift, invisible to those untrained in nuance, spoke louder than any words. Today, a lesson had been delivered, a lesson that would echo long after the concrete bore the marks of their falls. As the drills continued, Elena's mind drifted to the unseen casualties she had carried in her heart, the faces of comrades lost, the weight of those who relied on her in impossible circumstances. Each movement, each precise lock, each controlled throw was not just technique. It was a tribute, a way of honoring the resilience of those who couldn't defend themselves. The SEALs, now watching with a mix of awe and reverence, could feel the quiet power emanating from her presence. Even Marcus and Brandon began to understand, in fragments, the layers beneath her calm exterior, the unspoken stories, the sacrifices, the relentless discipline. Elena's eyes softened for a fleeting moment as she scanned the compound. This was more than a demonstration. It was an assertion of human dignity and mastery in the face of chaos. Silence fell over the circle as she stood alone, the wind sweeping across her face, carrying a subtle reminder. Strength is not loud, it is precise. Courage is not brash, it is measured, and true power lies in restraint. The wind picked up, tugging at her braided hair as Elena faced Marcus and Brandon one last time. The compound seemed to hold its breath. This was the moment when arrogance could fracture completely or lesson could cement itself. Brandon lunged recklessly, seeking redemption through aggression. Elena's eyes narrowed, not with anger but with clarity. She sidestepped, pivoted, and used his momentum against him, twisting his ankle into a controlled lock that forced him to the ground. Marcus, realizing too late that his brute strength had failed, stepped forward with raw force, and Elena met him with a calm precision that shattered his expectations. Her knee intercepted his mid-step, redirecting him to the floor. There was no vengeance in her movements, only discipline, only control, only a demonstration of truth. The body obeys the mind, and restraint trumps aggression every time. The spectators, silent for minutes, finally exhaled collectively, absorbing the depth of what they had witnessed. Today wasn't just about takedowns, it was about revelation. The SEALs, volunteers, and instructors absorbed the quiet weight of the moment. Elena straightened, breathing calm and even. She didn't raise her voice, didn't explain, didn't gloat. Her actions had spoken louder than words could. The silence held 1,000 lessons: humility, discipline, the power of experience, and the invisible cost of arrogance. For the men she had subdued, the lesson stung but carried a hidden gift: recognition of limits and the knowledge that underestimating anyone can have consequences. Observers felt something deeper. This was more than combat technique. It was an exhibition of human spirit, of focus honed by hardship, of courage quietly refined in the face of chaos. Elena's eyes softened as she glanced toward the horizon, sunlight reflecting off the Atlantic waters. Every movement, every pause, every controlled strike bore the echo of survival and remembrance, a silent tribute to those she had carried in her heart, and a reminder that true power is never loud, it is deliberate. Later, in the quiet of the debriefing room, Elena sat alone, adjusting her gloves for the last time. Her mind wandered through memories, friends lost in firefights, wounded comrades she had saved, nights spent in hostile silence. Each face carried a weight that could have broken her, yet here she was, calm, controlled, unshakable. The room smelled faintly of sweat and antiseptic, but to Elena, It was more than that, it was the tangible reminder of resilience. Around her, the seals whispered softly, recounting what they had seen, sharing disbelief and respect. Marcus and Brandon avoided eye contact, humbled but changed, carrying a new awareness of the discipline required to survive and protect. For Elena, the lesson was always clear. Courage manifests not in loud displays but in controlled action, in the ability to protect, endure, and act with precision when all else threatens to overwhelm. She closed her eyes briefly, the hum of distant activity soothing, and allowed herself a single exhale of release. The final training drill began, and Elena moved with the fluidity of experience. Each step, each pivot, each counter measured and precise. Volunteers attacked from multiple angles, unpredictably, and Elena adapted seamlessly, flowing through every strike, redirect, and hold as if she were dancing with invisible adversaries. Marcus and Brandon, watching now without arrogance, nodded slightly, understanding the magnitude of skill displayed. 7 seconds, 2 clean takedowns. Again and again, each repetition demonstrating mastery, patience, and the raw truth that discipline triumphs over chaos. The wind blew harder, lifting strands of hair across her face. Her eyes were calm, resolute. Every observer felt it, the weight of history, of survival, of unspoken stories of courage and loss embedded in her movements. She didn't need recognition. She needed no applause. Her body and mind had told the story fully. Resilience is forged quietly, strength is wielded wisely, and courage is measured not in brute force but in the power to control, endure, and protect. As the sun dipped low over the Atlantic horizon, the compound quieted. Elena Concaid stood, letting the shadows stretch behind her like silent witnesses to the day's events. The seals dispersed, carrying the lesson of restraint, humility, and skill forward into their lives and missions. Marcus and Brandon lingered, humbled, their egos tempered, understanding finally that experience and focus outweigh raw power. Elena adjusted her gear, a soft smile touching her lips. Today had been more than a demonstration, it had been a testament to the human spirit, to courage in the face of disbelief, and to quiet authority earned through years of discipline. She walked toward the base, the Atlantic wind carrying a whisper of resolve. Those who had doubted her now carried a newfound respect. And somewhere, in the stillness, the echoes of past comrades, the memory of survival, and the quiet triumph of restraint lingered, unspoken, eternal, and profoundly human. If Elena's courage and calm inspired you, tap like, share, and press the bell icon for more stories of extraordinary people doing the impossible. Remember, strength isn't always loud. It's the quiet mastery of the mind, body, and heart when the world challenges you the most.